All right, good evening, everyone. I have 5:30, so I will call tonight's meeting to order. We'd like to welcome all of you who are in attendance this evening. I will be candid and say it's not every meeting that we have such a nice crowd, and so we are especially excited to welcome all of our visitors here tonight. In addition to those in attendance, we also are live streaming this meeting on YouTube, and so we'd also like to say hello and welcome to those that are watching on either live or who will be watching this meeting later. There are no public hearings tonight, so we are now in the regular meeting. And beginning with that, we will ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Coleman? Here. Mr. Green? Ms. Hardison? Here. Mr. Marshall? Here. Mrs. Wiles? Here. Vice Mayor McBroom? Here. Mayor Mulder?
Here. Next item on the agenda is our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I am going to ask all of you who are able to please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight's invocation will be led by Councilmember Davina Hardison, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilmember Debbie Wiles.
Let us please bow. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and all the many blessings that you have bestowed upon us. Lord, we pray that as we enter this meeting, that you would keep your arms around us as we make decisions for the city of Columbia. We thank you for the support of the citizens of Columbia. We want to also send a special prayer out to Councilmember Tony Green and his family during this time. And we cannot forget that May is Mental Health Month, and we want to also think of those who are struggling with and dealing with that. As we end this prayer, in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. All right, next item on our agenda is the approval of agenda, item 4.
Make a motion.
It's been a motion made and properly seconded on item 4. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none, we will take the vote. That item is approved. I think this would be an appropriate time to point out this is now our third meeting, I believe, where we have had electronic voting, and we find for that to it goes really well. I thought it was slowing things down. I'm told actually it's just the awkward silence that makes it seems like it's slowing down, but it's actually just the same degree of efficiency and expediency. But do bear with us as we continue to sort of navigate that process. But I am told that that item has been approved for Section 4. So we will now move on to Section 5, presentations. And we have 3 presentations this evening. I'm going to ask for all of City Council to please meet me down in the well for some presentations, beginning with item 5.1, recognition of the Mayor's Youth Council. So City Council and Mayor's Youth Council who are present, please meet us down in the well for a presentation. We have more than very good. This is the time of year you always worry about it. High school students in the third for y'all. I know y'all have a lot of congratulations. This is the second year of the Mayor's Youth Council. It had not had one previously. We've learned that one in which a lot of cities have mayors. And so we're excited to be on that roster. Help bridge the gap. I tell young people have the opportunity, kindergartners or whether or not seniors in high school, that I am the youngest mayor serving. And so I look and act and talk more like than any other mayor before ever has, and maybe emphasis on the act in all the good ways. But in all seriousness, council was created not just a resume builder, although I hope, of course, more importantly, it was an opportunity. And I also tell young people when I always want to be out, whether or not they move back here like I did, whether or not they move somewhere else, be able to proud. Hopefully, your ability to take that you all are proud of. I know. I also want to give a shout out to JC. JC has sort of become the staff liaison. I don't know that she signed up for it, but she certainly has accepted the challenge, and I think the mayor. They all like it. So, it's sort of like but she does a great job and she organized. We are going to hear from the president of Mayor's. And Savannah, this is your second year. How many of you have served 2 years? We have 2 that are here tonight, a few returning members. And this council is also comprised of students from all across. When we first did this, we thought it would be last. Learned is actually we have basically every school, high school encompassed. Really like. Let me just mention about Savannah. She is a graduating senior, is a returning member, and is the president of the Mayor's. I wanted to point out about her. She's the recipient of the Daughters of American Revolution Military Officers Association, American Legion Scholarship, Navy Preparatory Program, the ROTC, the University of Memphis Scholarship Award, Hope Scholarship, Tiger. Haven't out yet. Going to the University of Memphis, and she's going to be joining the Army. Savannah, tell us a little bit about your count.
Okay, so he did already say that there are 26 members, and some of them couldn't be here tonight. But we are comprised of 26 students from all over Maury County schools. And then this year we hosted a toy drive in which we decorate donation boxes for each of the schools. And then we collected and organized over 600 items of toys, books, and clothes. And then we decided to give them out locally and donate them to the King's Daughter School, Maury County Public Library, the Pregnancy Center, and the Family Center, as well as Boys and Girls Club. And then throughout this service year, many of our members have actually volunteered at community service events, such as the Rotary Club's Pancake Day and Litter Cleanup Days, just on our streets to keep Columbia clean. And now I would like to recognize several of our members' individual accomplishments. And when I say your name, would you please step forward? DJ Campos. He's a graduate of Governor's School of International Studies. He was awarded Rotary Service Above Self Award, awarded Outstanding Statesperson at Youth in Government, and awarded several Central Senior Honors Awards. Thank you very much. He's also our vice chair this year, so woo. Mickey Boshier received a full ride to the University of Mississippi for secondary English education and was nominated as an outstanding lead performer for the National High School Musical Theater Award. Chloe Moore. Chloe was accepted to start college a year early and was nominated to represent her school at the Congress of Future Medical Leaders. Anna Brewer. She's a district and all regional teams for softball this year. I cannot express how proud I am of the youth that is up here with me today. They have come to meetings every single month of this school year, and we have done so much, and I can't wait to see what they will continue to do in the years that I'm gone. But I know that I'm going to come back to a better Columbia. So thank you.
Gives you a good work. Here's surrounded by your entire city. We read the proclamation, and then we're going to take a photo with you. The City of Columbia strives to promote youth, local, state. The City of Columbia established a class in youth. We would like to recognize students prize class, commend them for being holiday toys, books, clothing items donated to the local. Commend their proven leadership and endorse future leaders. Now there, all members here today, mayors, youth, all citizens. This is a quick photo, get council, city council in it as well, and we'll just just scoot away.
Trust me.
Here, I'll move So this is when I always tell civic presentation, it won't be awkward if you like to leave now. It's tough. We have parents here as well. Like, to the parents who are here, we also do things. Certainly. Okay, let's give another round.
I think that. Oh, come on down there.
All right. Well, the next item on tonight's agenda is item 2, which is the proclamation proclaiming Public Works Week. And in typical Jeff Dwyer and Jeff Riggins fashion, they're not here tonight. That's where they are. They're at Public Works. And so instead of Dwyer and Riggins, we have the firm of Moore and Osmond. So come on up, Josh. We're really excited. They got the call from the bullpen. Like, you know anything about Public Works, both folks. Josh Moore is a sanitation supervisor and does a great job. And I'm told the only way that he agreed to come tonight is he had an opportunity to speak about 5 minutes. And with Josh is also Donna Osmond, who's really proud of y'all here. I was talking to Jeff Dwyer earlier today, just trying to figure out, I mean, you know, one thing we take for granted when we have large events is number one, the preparation that goes into those, and then number two, the cleanup that is required after this. And a lot of man hours that Jeff was telling me that for Mule Day, 24 employees, Public Works employees called in. Work begins sometime around 5 a.m., ends around 12 later, and then they come back Sunday to do the cleanup. Generally speaking, by the time we wake up on Sunday, you would know 100,000 people in town celebrating Mule Day today. And they just do a fantastic job. It's not all they do. They do so many things that are important to just the overall governmental operation. Folks want their trash. Want to make sure that like that, and a lot of that works. So we're so excited to be able to honor them. They don't get enough of this. I do have a proclamation already, and I'm certainly open the floor. I'm not even going to put Josh Moore on the spot. Donna
I
also.
thought you had a speech prepared.
He is right now. But Donna, if you want to say any words after, or if you want to say any words,
No, I'll wait.
Okay. All right. So, public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, well-being of the It is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Columbia, Tennessee, to gain knowledge of, to maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works program. The year 2023 marks the 63rd annual National Public Works sponsored by the American Public Works Association. 2023 theme is Connecting the World Through Public Works, showcases the dedicated professionals employed within each and every public works, including all public works personnel are essential first responders, work with local citizens. The City of Columbia Public Works maintain our community's work to provide an infrastructure of services, transportation, stormwater treatment, public buildings and spaces, parks and grounds, emergency management, first response during storms, pandemic, solid waste, and right-of-way management. Doing so helps connect Columbia to not only other municipalities, other states throughout our great country. We work. I, Chaz Mulder, Mayor of the City of Columbia, all of the City Council, do hereby proclaim 2021 27th, Public Works Week, 20 Tennessee. All right, Public Works.
On behalf of Jeff Dwyer and Jeff Riggins, who conveniently couldn't be here tonight, I do want to thank you and council for recognizing Public Works and our employees and the work that they do. And then also we have a lot of pub ed programs that we have started throughout the city. So you'll see us out and about in the schools, at community events. And if you do, we invite everyone to. Thank you.
Donna, one of my favorite Public Works sort of programs of like happened was Snow Pop Fest, and we had an opportunity to recognize the winners of that contest. A couple meetings ago, y'all recently been to the schools to sort of showcase that to the students. How has that?
That has been wonderful, and we've been asked if we're going to do it again, and the answer to that is absolutely. We had so much fun with that. Just the interaction we received from the public was outstanding, and then for the school children, it was even better. And then a lot of these kids that we're seeing in the elementary schools, we're going to include the middle schools next round as well. But a lot of the kids that we saw in elementary schools, when we took the snowplows to those schools, they remembered us from a career fair that took place at another school that we were at. So it's pretty interesting to see the kids and to know that they remember us from other events and they want to keep coming back. So we're going to keep giving it. As long as they want it, we're going to.
Sounds like some force help.
Absolutely. That's what we're working on.
All right. Well, City Council will join me. We'll take this quick photo with the proclamation and. Gosh.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we have one more presentation tonight. That's item 5.3. And so I would ask Chief Alsop and any staff of his here this evening well for a proclamation. They're very all right. Well, this is the police. This is also a very we want to give a plug for those who watch. Is Opportunity Success Program service also very important. Those services happen on. I'm proud. You know, the thing about Columbia Police always show a big, whether it be serious, threatening. Those things might be very trivial. Helping someone on the side of the road. A few weeks ago, I saw have a degree of no matter what end of the spectrum their duty calls them to do. I'm always so with that, I read this proclamation. There are more than 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated officers. Since the first recorded death in 1786, 26,250 law enforcement officers made the ultimate sacrifice, building the line of, including one member of the 164 officers. It is important that all citizens use ability to hazards and sacrifice of law enforcement that our Columbia police officers protecting them against protecting the innocent against the therefore I, Chaz Muller, give all the city police Monday, May 5th, peace World Day, law enforcement ultimate.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, I can tell you with a surety that our job becomes easier every day. We know we have support from council, and it shows. We know we have support. Don't even have to say it. Our partnership with other emergency services, the CFR, Columbia Police Department, and we form strong partnership with all of our first responders, law enforcement in this county, and we're very proud of it. It makes our job.
Council.
Thanks, sir. Thank you.
We're on a little bit of a roll. Does anyone else see any proclaiming tonight? Okay, back on the agenda. Thank you, all of you, for your patience for those presentations. I know sometimes they seem like they're somewhat trivial, but I promise you they're important to those who are honored, and they're important to this council to have the opportunity to recognize the good things in our community. All right, item 6.1, approve the minutes of the April 13th, 2023 City Council meeting.
Move to approve.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. That item is approved. Next item, 6.2, approve the retirement benefits for Marilee Mashevsky, Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation. It's been moved and properly seconded. I just want to point out that Ms. Mashevsky has been a long time employee of Parks and Rec and someone that when you see her, you associate her with not only Parks and Rec, but the city of Columbia. And so, Mac, if you would please send our best regards to Ms. Mashevsky. Hearing no other discussion, we'll take the vote. That item is approved. Next item, 6.3, approve of council's appointment to the City of Columbia Housing Board of Adjustments and Appeals for a 3-year term expiring on May 11th, 2026. That is a vacancy that has occurred as a result of a resignation, and that board does have a need to meet for a May 25th meeting, and so we need to add an individual to that board. And the name that I'm bringing you tonight, who has agreed to serve if confirmed, is Sarah Harris Berry. So I will bring her in the form of a motion for appointment. Properly seconded. Any discussion on item 6.3, appointment of Sarah Harris Berry? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. That item is approved. Next, Section 7, consent agenda. These are items that are deemed non-controversial, requiring no additional discussion beyond that which was occurred at the study session. I will read through them collectively, and we will vote on them as a collective item. 7.1, approve disbursements for the month of March 2023 in the amount of $5,265,708.37. 7.2, approve professional services proposal with Henderson, Hutcherson, and McCullough for annual auditing services 7.3, approve payment to Murray County to provide funding for the Murray County City of Columbia Animal Services Facility for the third quarter fiscal year 2023 in the amount of $50,000. 7.4, approve sole source procurement of personal patrol vehicle from the Trike Professional Mobility in the amount of $26,424. 7.5, approve donating 10 outdated Kenwood radios to the Tennessee Law Enforcement Training Academy. 7.6, approve mayor signing amendment with Lowe's Design in the amount of $4,250 for design and engineering fees. 7.7, ratify approval of the mayor executing a mutual aid agreement with Wayne County for disaster cleanup. 7.8, approve the payment of $49,662.52 to Cumberland Machine Company for the rebuild of one of the Green Lick sanitary sewer pump station pumps. 7.9, approve and authorize the mayor to sign the non-exclusive use and occupancy permit between the City of Columbia and the Muletown Baseball League for the 2023 season. 7.10, approve and authorize the mayor to sign the non-exclusive use and occupancy permit between the City of Columbia and the Columbia American Little League for the 2023 season. 7.11, approve and authorize the mayor to sign the non-exclusive use and occupancy permit between the City of Columbia and the Columbia Soccer Association. 7.12, approve the purchase of a tractor and equipment in the amount of $62,000 using Sourcewell contract. 7.13, approve the mayor executing the hold harmless agreement with TJ Crowell Properties LLC. 7.14, approve the mayor executing the form to approve offer for tracks 1, 3, and 4 for slope and construction easements needed to construct the Iron Bridge replacement over Little Creek. 7.15, ratify customer service agreement with Cintas for uniform, janitorial, and linen rentals. And last item, 7.16, approve and authorize the mayor to sign a purchase agreement in the amount of $7,770 and maintenance agreement in the amount of .0075 per black and white copy and .45 or 045 per color copy, billed quarterly with Better Business Solutions for One Sharp VP copier system. That is your consent agenda.
Move to approve.
It's been moved and properly seconded on the consent agenda. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none. Take the vote. That item is approved. Section 8, Administration. There being no items on that section, we'll move on now to Section 9, Resolutions, beginning with item 9.1, Resolution number 2328, Tax Corrections. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on item 9.1? Hearing none, we will take the vote. That item is approved. Next item, 9.2, resolution number 2330, a resolution to adopt an official flag for the City of Columbia. And you know, when you've never done this before, you don't really have a playbook on how to go about doing this. And so we were talking about the best way to do it. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the resolution to adopt an official flag for the City of Columbia. We will then call on a vote of that resolution, and then we'll have a brief presentation in the well for some of the participants involved in this process. Before we do that, let me just say that, Ms. Murphy, I appreciate you sort of overseeing this process. This has been something that we've sort of learned as we went, but it's a process that went quite well and that included a lot of civic engagement, beginning with Nathaniel Bliss, which I don't think Nathaniel was he able to make it? All right, Nathan is here. We were glad to see that. We were a little worried. We know that he had some things going on today. I'm glad he was able to get his calendar to make himself available, because this really where it all began was an email from someone who wanted to create a city flag and make it as a part of his Eagle project. And as I shared last week, I'm really the only male member of my family on both sides, my side and my wife's side, who is not an Eagle Scout. And so this was allowing me to sort of live a little vicariously through an Eagle project. And so I appreciated that. But really and truly was the amount of work that he had put into this before he even came to me, to sort of have done the research, to know that we did not have a flag, which we did fact check him on that. And we were somewhat surprised to learn that we did not already have one. But Nathan is really sort of where it started. And then it evolved into something that really entailed a full community effort and participation. It also involved our Arts Council, which is something we were really excited about. And so we're just really proud of the final outcome as to all things. So let me read the resolution. The City of Columbia currently has no official city flag and wishes to adopt an official city flag. Flags are used to symbolize leadership and community and to build pride and loyalty. Nathaniel Bliss, local scout, initiated a conversation with the city mayor about the need for a Columbia flag as an idea for his Eagle Scout project, and city staff launched a flag competition soliciting designs from across the community. The Columbia Arts Council reviewed 41 qualifying design entries, utilizing the guiding principles of the North American Vexillological Association, and selected their top 3 designs. The community then voted among the top 3 designs to select the winning design, submitted by Bryson Leach, local resident and business owner. The proposed flag design, which will be presented to the screen momentarily, was inspired, according to Bryson Leach, by leadership, unity, history, diversity, the Tennessee flag, and the Duck River. The proposed flag design contains the following elements: a 2-toned field of blue over red representing Columbia's presidential history and paying homage to our home state of Tennessee and its flag. A horizontal wave of blue and red stripes weaving across the middle representing the Duck River with the weaving of red and blue in the center, representing Columbia's place in civil rights history starting in 1946, celebrating diversity. And finally, a white star in the upper left corner representing Columbia's place as the county seat of Maury County and our place in presidential, technological, industrial, civic, and community leadership. Therefore, let it be resolved by the City of Columbia that the City Council hereby adopts the winning flag design as the official flag for the City of Columbia. And I would like to make a motion to approve that resolution, which would be adopting the official city flag. Has been properly seconded. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none, we will take the vote to adopt the official city flag. And that vote is approved, and the flag is adopted officially. And do we have the flag available for the screen? Okay, we're going to have to maybe just, Miss Murphy, I know, has a picture of it, so if we don't have it on the screen. So, in fact, if we'll call Miss Murphy and Bryson Leach and his family to the well, please, and the other participants.
Flip it around.
Voila, there it is.
Yeah. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, I'd also like to call up we had 3 wonderful finalists that were chosen by the Arts Council. We have George Morales and Amanda Bird here as well. We'd like to call them up for their participation. Hi, George. Thank you for being here. I'd like to ask Bryson to say a few words. Yes?
Sure.
Come on up.
Sorry, it's his first city council, so. This is a pretty cool experience. I was joking slightly and saying that this may be a career highlight for me. So I'm a little bit of a flag nerd. I had no idea that this kind of happened around about a time where I personally started really getting into flags myself. So it was like a cool opportunity I may have bought about 5 different books about flag design and got really nerdy about it. And I just kind of gave it my best shot. And I'm glad that it was picked. It's an honor. I'm excited to see it flown all over town. So, and I'm glad that it's going to be a part of the city. Thank you.
Bryson, introduce us.
Oh, this is Owen, Amos, and my wife Susan.
Well, Bryson, thank you so much. You have kids who are here. This your dad. I don't know. That doesn't seem to get any cooler. But Bryson, we do have excellent. and as Kelly mentioned, y'all hang tight. Kelly mentioned we had 41 entries. We had no idea. We were actually excited first in that we were going to have. And 41, and they were really, each one was unique. Had a story about it. Had about all over many years. There's no sign of we would have known that if all of Georgia County also included a very good flag. Sure. So we have this certificate that works for you and exception.
You come stand by me.
was like, no. And before I'll let you leave, Nathan, I know that in your Eagle project somewhere there's a requirement of public speaking. So maybe you could just tell us real quick a little bit about your project.
All right. All right, so this started out as just me brainstorming ideas for my project. I had absolutely no clue what I wanted to do, and then I figured maybe do something a little out of the box, and I've been interested in Vexillot. I don't know how to say it. It's difficult. But flag stuff, basically. I've been interested in that for a while, so I figured why not give this a shot? I figured it's a community project. It's going to leave a legacy or be long lasting in the community, and I'm glad it worked out, actually. Yeah. I'm pretty happy with this.
Well, it's pretty cool, as I mentioned, that he'll get
Yeah.
you see. Like, we will have an flag once. We're proud to be partnering with Flag World here in Columbia. Nathan will make a flag. Awesome. I don't know about you, but I think. All right, that takes us to item 9.3, a resolution to accept the ownership and maintenance of sewer improvements serving 501 Chairs Circle and abandoned 108 linear feet of the existing line.
Second.
The item's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none, take the vote. I'm told that item is approved on a vote of 6-0. So that item 9.3 is approved. Next item 9.4, Resolution 2332, a resolution to accept a donation from F3 Muletown of a pin oak tree valued in the amount of $268.88 to be planted in the same area to replace the one that fell in Woodland Park.
Second.
That item's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on item 9.4? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. That item is approved. Next, section 10, ordinances, beginning 10.1. Second consideration of ordinance number 4459 as amended an ordinance to amend ordinance 4411, the classification and compensation plan for the employees of the City of Columbia for the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Second.
That item has been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on item 10.1? And of course, as you know, this will also correspond with item 10.10 later in the agenda. This is 10.1. No further discussion. We'll take the vote. That item is approved. Next item is 10.2. First consideration of ordinance number 4456, an ordinance to amend ordinance number 4400, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Columbia by rezoning a portion of tax map 112, parcel 9, located at 6150 Trotwood Avenue, from rural character district to planned unit development residential, and established June 8th, 2023 is the date of public hearing. This is Ward 4. And we do have a few individuals who have signed up to speak this evening. And so I think we'll allow those individuals to speak. Is that right, Mr. Tischer? And then we'll come back on the item for a motion. And those items that have signed up to speak, I will call your name. If you'll please come to the podium, you'll have the floor for 3 minutes. And please identify yourself with your name and your address, beginning with Michael White.
Hello, Mr. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and council members. Want to first of all say I appreciate your service, but I do not envy your task. At the first meeting of this, I admit my desire was to have 0 lots behind my home because my property backs up to this development. But I quickly learned that probably was not going to happen. These gentlemen have been nothing but professional, and they've presented an attractive plan. Along with other neighbors, I've met with them via Zoom, met with them in person here at City Hall, and they've even met with our residents of our neighborhood one evening at the end of Yeatman Lane. I have no problems with these guys personally. Professionally, I do have an issue with this proposed development. As Ashwood Manor residents, our major concerns have been the size of this development, using Yeatman Lane as an entrance to their neighborhood, and the extra traffic burden on Trotwood Avenue. In your study session last week, you addressed the Yeatman Lane issue, and I hope this can get settled as it was intended by this council. As for the remaining 2 concerns, I believe they go hand in hand. The more building lots permitted, the additional traffic burden on Trotwood Avenue. Last week, I listened to a gentleman's statement about doing traffic studies every 12 months. With all due respect, sir, we do traffic studies every day and can assure you that the potential of adding 1,500 more cars on Trotwood Avenue is extremely concerning, regardless of the turn signals and the traffic signals. The developers have proposed 350-foot buffer behind some of our neighborhood and 200 feet behind the rest. They've also designed the majority of their lots to be 60 feet wide. How about 350 feet wide all the way around Ashwood Manor and a minimum lot size of 75 feet? That would reduce lot count as well as reduce traffic. You know, it's obvious that people are moving to Columbia, but do we know why? Sure, it's an awesome community, but why are these people leaving their former homes? Some are work-related, some are housing upgrades, but I also know that some are escaping the overcrowded housing of Spring Hill, Franklin, and other communities. You know, my wife and I built our home in Ashwood Manor 27 years ago with the intention of never moving again. Now, for the first time in 27 years, we are now entertaining thoughts of where can we go to get away from this. I'm very confident that we are not the only people thinking like this, not just in Ashwood Manor, but everywhere in Columbia that is faced with these same challenges. I'll conclude with a little bit of irony. When we met with these guys one morning here in person at City Hall. One of the guys was running a little late, and he came in apologizing, telling us what a nightmare it was getting through a particular subdivision at that time in the morning. I couldn't help but to think, this is exactly what we're trying to fight and prevent here in our neighborhood. Again, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Next on the agenda is Cheryl Hawley. Ms. Hawley, come identify yourself and your address, and you'll have the floor for 3 minutes. Welcome to City Hall.
Cheryl Hawley, thank you for hearing me. 6439 Old Zion Road, which looks straight out my front door to the beautiful farm across the street, which is part of Phase 2. Which is right next door to Ashwood. We have our neighborhood is technically it is a subdivision, although it is very small. I would like to request a buffer for our neighborhood as well. There are several 100-foot lots right across the street from our house, which is part of our neighborhood, and I would like to have a buffer for our neighborhood as well, whatever the depth of those lots are. I would like to also reiterate that 775 units as a whole, that's way too many units for that neighborhood. This is not a Franklin-Williamson County neighborhood, or this is a Franklin-Williamson County neighborhood development, which is basically a 0 lot line. Again, I reiterate what Michael said. People don't move here to have a zero lot line. They move here for space. They move here for quality of life. And this is not a quality of life, even though I see that you have walking trails, you have a swimming pool, which in my opinion is one swimming pool for 775 units. That's not enough swimming pool if you're going to have a swimming pool at all. Anyway, I would like to see many fewer units, half at least. It is will be a burden on Trotwood. It will be a burden on the whole Zion community as a whole. I don't know if you have considered that there is a Christian school out there that has teenage drivers, parents trying to get their kids to school, down Trotwood, a large majority of them. And also, if you've ever been on Trotwood at 745, it's at least right now sometimes a 3 and 4 light wait to get through the Casey Lane and Rutherford intersections, turning what is normally could be having this many 1,400 cars could turn what is normally a 10-minute commute to 20 or 30 minutes just to get to James Campbell Boulevard. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawley. Next up, Connie Green.
Thank you very much, Mayor Mulder and members of the council. I am a county commissioner. I represent this district that we are talking about today. I grew up in Columbia, Tennessee at 1221 Trotwood Avenue. My house was built in 1852, but of course it's been torn down. It's now a Dairy Queen, has that address. But when I came back to Columbia, my parents were very active in this community and were small business owners. My mother was in charge of the American Red Cross here. So I have some deep ties. My family farm is on Polk Lane, the Napier Farm, and J.B. Napier was my uncle. And he talked a great deal about 43 being built, and Trotwood would not be widened. I want to explain something that happened to me Monday. I was in my yard, and I was working out there, and 2 semis are going past my house. There is no shoulder. It is a double yellow line. I'm at 6058 Trotwood. And here comes an ambulance. And there is no way around those 2 semis. There is no shoulder. So what is going to happen? Are you going to put 2 semis in a ditch to get your ambulance around? This Trotwood, I looked up on the state, there's no widening of Trotwood being proposed in the near future. So we're going to have a major traffic problem. I tried to get out of my house this afternoon at 4:15, and 50 cars came past me, and 15 minutes later, I finally got out of my driveway. And that is typical for most of the hours of the day. And it is very concerning to have this kind of traffic and to have so many ambulances running up and down Trotwood. Who's going to lose their life? The trucking is increasing every single day between dump trucks, rock trucks. We have Kroger's, we've got Walmart, we have all these semis on this road. 43 was put in to take care of that problem, and it is not. So I would really ask you to pay attention to that and to pay attention to the problems the county is facing. I don't have sewer, and I'm on Trotwood. I don't have gas, and I'm on Trotwood. So the services, and I'm in Columbia, and I'm paying Columbia taxes. So I can tell you that all the services are not there, and the county has enough problems as it is. $50 million is a request for another new school from Maury County, from the school district. We are already in massive debt, and the only way that we can get that kind of money to build schools is property taxes. Thank you.
Next up, Randy Butler. Mr. Butler, come on up. Identify yourself. You'll have the floor for 3 minutes. Welcome to City Hall.
My name is Randy Butler, 6510 Breckenridge Cove in Columbia. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the committee, thanks for listening to me. I spoke to you last week, so I'm not going to rehash all that I said at the work session. One thing I would ask you to do, well, first off, I'd like to see rejected tonight, but in the case that it doesn't happen and it moves on, take the time as you're reviewing this to go and drive at 4:30 from Columbia to Mount Pleasant, just so you get a feel for what we're talking about, that we're not exaggerating the situation of what that load on that road is already. A 4-lane there is, a guy told me the other day, well, we can build a 4-lane. Down through there, you got historic property. We couldn't even get a turn lane put in Ridley Field. Much rather a 5-lane, because that's what you'd need if you're going to do this, because you have to have a suicide lane or you still hold traffic up. It'd be 10 or 12 years best you could do, and I don't think we could do it in that, to 4-lane that, if it ever happens. So we're going to have to live with that road the way it is, in my opinion. And it's already, there's too much load on it. The other thing, as you're reviewing this and thinking about it, the scale that the developers provided, I think it's to scale. It looks like it is. Look at the homes in Ashwood Manor. They're acre lots. Just compare the blocks, the size to what's going to be out there in that development. There's almost 4 houses to an acre out there. 12,000, a lot of 12,000 square foot lots. It just doesn't seem like we have to accept that in Columbia. I've lived in some other places. I hate to see this turn into Smyrna and Laverne or some place like that. We have better standards, and I know there is a zoning classification for this type of build. I understand that. But every zoning classification doesn't fit every part of the city. And this is out in the rural. We're pulling in a rural area to annex, and it just seems like this doesn't fit this area, and that road is our biggest concern, though, of all the things. And the less houses we have, and this has been said a dozen times, I know, the less houses we have, the less traffic we have on that road that we have to travel every day. That's all I've got. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Next up, Ricky South.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. Ricky South, 6407 Gateman Lane in Ashwood Manor, and a lifelong Murray County resident. Again, I don't want to rehash, but the traffic is ridiculous already where we are. It's a county road, no shoulder, and it's already overburdened. On the way in today to the meeting up Trotwood, it was backed up all the way from the Food Lion area all the way into downtown. Just stop and go traffic. Now we're going to add 1,500 more cars or 1,400 more cars to that. It's just not. It's an untenable situation for anybody living out that way. And why are we in such a hurry to do that? Why can't we figure out what it's going to cost to improve the roads? Why can't we figure out what it's going to cost to make sure we have adequate schools and facilities? Why are we in such a hurry? Why can't we study this? Why can't we make sure that we have a plan, that we have the proper funding, and why can't we ask them to put in a more reasonable subdivision that matches, all the area around it? Why does it have to be so dense and populated? Acre lots would be a whole lot more feasible, I think, to the area. But we still need to fix Trotwood, and that's I hope for your consideration of that. I hope that you would defer this tonight so that we can really get some real answers, and not just push forward an agenda because somebody wants to get it done. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. South. Final speaker that signed up is Doug Chapman.
If you're here for the whole sign, I think you stand up for me real quick. Thank you. I just wanted everybody to see that. All right, Douglas Chapman. I am here in my individual capacity here today as a person who lives out there in Ashwood Manor. So we've heard a lot of things about what kind of issues there are, but what are some possible solutions out there? One thing that we would propose is that all of the lots that face towards Ashwood Manor or any of the roads or towards the park be at least 100-foot wide lots. Any of the roads that face that goes through the main north and south road that goes in there that would dump into Ridley Park, that would also be a 100-foot wide alley load lot. All the rest of the lots that are inside, the interior lots, would be 75-foot wide lots. But keep the same footprint for the property that's there now. I believe it's about half of the area out there is into the property where the development is. Keep that the same, but then change the lot size on there. Also agree with the 350-foot buffer out there. I'm a little biased. Behind my house is where the 200-foot section is, so I would love to see 350 all the way around out there. I want to put myself in y'all's situations. I understand this is something is going to be built out there, but if I were y'all, there's going to be a large area out there that's a green space out there, this buffer. Wouldn't it make sense to have that be into a conservation easement, something that was written into what y'all are doing? I'm sure the HOA who's going to be out there wouldn't mind paying a little bit less city tax for the county or for the city since it's going to be in there. One thing I also heard that it's not supposed to not be able to be visible from Ashwood or from Trotwood. That's going to take a lot of trees, a lot of time for that to be able to grow up and for that to take place. I know that's been promised in the past. I can tell you right now, as you drive through, you can see all the way clear to the back out there. Other things that we would consider as far as the visual aspect of the neighborhood there, to make it more in line with the area, we would ask for the garages to be facing out to the side as opposed to the front. It's just going to look a lot better if they had that side entrance in there. With regard to the character area matrix that y'all have out there, this is an area of development that's not in one of the expansion zones out there. So is the property an area of change? No. The development pattern is established. Changes to the overall character of the area should rarely occur. Sitting here reading this out of Columbia's own paperwork that they have out here. Now, what's being asked for to take place out of this is to go from what is essentially an RS40 down to an RS6. Well, we've got an RS20 and 10 in between there to be able to try to get you where you need to. Out there to be somewhere in the middle. Trying to wrap up out here. If I were the city, I would ask to lower the speed limit out all the way to the city limits. In a moment of MOU with regard to the city as far as who is responsible for any kind of injuries that might take place out there on the walkways or right off the walkways. Finally, I think that if there's any more developers that come through out there, I know that they've talked about going through and doing expansion as far as doing a J-turn out there onto the bypass. What I would say is if that's not done yet, by the time there's additional development out there, should be able to look into possibly putting light out there. It's really hard to see coming off of the bypass on there, especially at night. At a minimum, if there's going to be a J-turn there needs to be some lights out there to see where you're pulling into. You're going over a little bit of a rise. I've almost not gone into the right spot coming on off the bypass onto that section. I know y'all have a tough job. There's a lot of y'all who are up here who are lifelong Columbia residents or fairly new as well. All of y'all care a lot about the city. We all do as well. We want to see it be the best it can be. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. All right, that is all of the individuals that signed up to speak on behalf of in opposition to the project, and so now we'll allow the developer to provide a presentation, 3-minute presentation as well.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jay Easter with Reagan Smith. We're happy to be back and continue to address Council's questions and the neighbors' questions on this development. We're happy to be here tonight with recommendation for the Planning Commission approval for the first time. This has not been a fast process. I've heard the neighbors say, why don't we slow down? Well, we've been at this process now for over a year and a half. We have met with them. We have reduced density. We are less dense. We are less than 2 units to the acre in density. So we are 1.84 units to the acre. So we are less dense than the recommended lowest density for this property. It is within a PUD. It does have 765 homes, but it has almost 50% open space. So the lots could get larger, potentially, we would prefer to have the open space for the community and the neighborhood to enjoy. Since this project began, we have dropped over 221 lots from our original submittal. We are still providing and have increased the buffers along Ridley Park. We have increased the buffers along Ashwood Manor, and we have over 50% open space. There is a substantial traffic study that was submitted and substantial road improvements that will happen along Trotwood and the other roads. We've been through this. I'm not going to rehash it with you guys. We're here to address your questions. This project is in compliance with the land use plan, and we gladly seek your recommendation to move forward to the next step. Thank you.
All right. We may come back to you if there are any questions, but thank you for those comments. So we're back on 10.2, and just for purposes of our own information, items 10.2 all the way down to 10.6 concern this same subject property. So 10.2 is the first one that we'll be voting on, but in effect, it will cover 10.2 through all the way down to 10.6. So I guess for purposes of discussion, we'll need a motion and a second for discussion to begin. Is there a motion to approve, or is there a motion on item 10.2?
If we make the motion, can we put in things we would like to see done?
I think the motion would be subject to Mr. City Attorney.
You can make the motion however you want to make the motion, on whichever of these items you want to make.
Well, in that case, Vice Mayor, would you rather ask some questions and have a little discussion before you do? Okay. So, Mr. Vice Mayor, would you like to ask a question?
All right, questions I have is, unfortunately, our iPads load their stuff extremely slow, so I can't pull up to look at it. You will have turn lanes going into the subdivision, correct?
Yes, sir.
So when the stoplight's there will be a turn lane.
Correct. Let him pull up the exhibit and we can walk through the traffic improvements that are part of the traffic study. So we will have turn lanes and acceleration, deceleration lanes at the main entrance, as well as down here at Old Zion, as well as the other entrance down there, as well as J-turn up here. There will be a new traffic light installed here. There will be programming of the traffic light closer towards town to synchronize them and some work there, as well as another new traffic light. We'll walk around the edge. Mount Pleasant one,
Okay, so the traffic light in Mount Pleasant, how can we be sure that it gets put in? If it gets approved, they have to put the light in. How do we make sure it's done? Can y'all bring a working agreement or two? I don't know how to make that happen. How do we make that happen? Because we don't have any control over it, but it should be done because of it.
No, it would be us coordinating.
So what would happen if you don't coordinate it? A traffic light's going to be expensive. What's the recourse that we have?
It's part of the traffic impact study, so it's part of the recommended requirements for us to make those to install that.
Mount Pleasant has to be involved in it, not us.
Correct.
What if Mount Pleasant says no?
Then it would either not go in, or we're willing to put it in if that's what they want us to do. If they accept it.
Question: what if they say no?
Yeah,
the traffic light there.
We're not trying to get out of it by any means. I'll say that we're not trying. I wish it was in Columbia so we could guarantee you we'll do it. I'll tell you, we could probably put a bond up for it if that would do it.
Well, the bond would just be something that would be called if it were not put in, and then that money would be held for a later date. The bond would not force the putting in of traffic.
I'm just trying to think of an idea.
Yeah. Mr. Vice Mayor, I'm going to cut you off because I know you got more, but on this topic, I know that the Vice Mayor was contemplating a motion subject to a few things. Could the motion be subject to the confirmation or approval from the City of Mount Pleasant that light would be allowed to be installed at the appropriate point of time in the project?
I would just say that it be subject to the requirements of the traffic study.
Okay.
And I think that's
But I guess, Correct, but the traffic study says put a light in Mount Pleasant. But what if Mount Pleasant were to say, we're not really interested in a light right here on this side, and so we're not going to approve it? And I would imagine that they have the approval over signalizations within their jurisdictional limits.
That's correct. But I mean, I don't think that we need to mention Mount Pleasant. I think we need to mention subject to the requirements of the traffic study, which that does require that light be put in. And then if it's not put in, then you all would have to revisit at that point in time. They would have to get something from Mount Pleasant saying it would be allowed.
Okay.
And does Mount Pleasant use the same lights we do?
That I'm not sure.
Because we'd have to put our lights. Mount Pleasant would maintain their light. Do
Yeah,
y'all know?
I'm not sure.
Does Mount Pleasant use the same lights that we do? That's something that needs to be found out. Because we'll have to coordinate, y'all will have to coordinate all the lights with that light.
Right.
If they don't use, and then they'll have to maintenance the light.
They will have to accept maintenance of the light.
Yeah.
Correct. That's correct.
Well, that could be something that maybe also could be talked about between now and the second. I mean, you've got 30 days before a second reading, assuming you get to a second reading. And so I think if nothing else, I would like to hear something on that at the second reading.
Sure.
Assuming that we get there.
Yeah, I would assume they could get with Mount Pleasant and get something from them confirming that they would allow the light between now and then.
I mean, the reality is Mount Pleasant's probably going to want this light. I mean,
I
just
would
like
think
the
so.
reality is this traffic study is going to help with the flow of traffic overall.
Right.
But you don't want to make an assumption on that. So maybe just between now and the next 30 days, if you can let us know something on that.
We'll definitely do that.
All right,
Also,
Vice Mayor.
If we put in the motion that we want the traffic light at the main entrance, what do y'all have a name for that road?
Not yet.
Well, that light has to go in before CO's permitted, and
Well,
that road has to connect to Ridley Park.
The road will not be connecting all the way up as part of phase.
The road has to connect to Ridley Park. That would be, if I make the motion, that is what I would.
As far as phase one, you're saying
Phase one.
right off the rip. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because that's one reason why the light is semi-attractive on it is it helps Ridley Park flow out.
Okay. We could rework the phasing to make that happen. Yeah.
That's the questions I had now.
Okay.
Okay.
Councilmember Wiles.
I just go back to that. Remind me what that like, wasn't it?
No, the updated
Traffic
count is
studies.
done annually. Once it's wanted, go in.
So timeframe,
To be determined, and that we're working with city staff on that.
Anybody else have any questions? Councilmember Marshall.
What was determined on the connection with Ashwood Manor? What was the final thing that came up on
We're
that?
waiting on council direction, but we did prepare some exhibits to how it could happen, as well as how the parking that Councilmember Vice Mayor McBroom asked about, or shows how the lots can shift right away.
The first one's of the parking.
Now, in this scenario, it would be unimproved. We would just be dedicating right away for if and when the city decided they would like to connect.
So this is what you're showing depicts. I'm sorry. Somebody else talking.
No, you go ahead. I was going to ask Mac Reagan if he has seen this and he thinks it's okay with him.
All right, we'll start with that. Mac, you had a question from the Vice Mayor.
While Mac is coming up, Jeff Dwyer is unsure as to what type of traffic signal the city of Mount Pleasant uses, so we don't know.
Have you seen this, Mac Reagan?
Yes, sir. I've reviewed it, and I sent it to my staff for review, and that we're all in agreement it would meet the needs of that upcoming bike trails, whatever we had there. So,
thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
All right, sorry about that, Vice Mayor. Now on the page 2 that you presented, it shows the 60-foot right of way that leaves the connectivity there. And can you refresh our recollection sort of how that conversation went at Planning Commission and just sort of know what our options would be? Or maybe that's actually a Paul Kellner question. Can I ask Mr. Kellner?
The motion at Planning Commission was not for the right of way.
Right. And then, Mr. Keltner, wasn't it, I mean, there was some discussion about letting the Yeatman Lane property owners have a say in other words, we would keep the right of way there, but have something in the motion that would preserve Yeatman Lane property owners the right to have a say as to whether the connectivity ever occurred. Because I think my concern on just not allowing the right of way at all is that it would be placating the concerns of Ashwood Manor today, which I like to be able to do that. However, it could be that the Ashwood Manor residents of 20 years from now may wish to have the connectivity so that they could have an off-put onto Old Zion Road or to get out in a different way, not onto Trotwood. So I'm sort of sensitive to both of those countervailing arguments, which is why I liked having the Yeatman Lane, preserved to be able to say whether or not they want it or not, almost like an annexation where they have to request the connectivity in order for there to be connectivity. Does that all sound like sort of what was discussed at Planning Commission and even last week at study session?
Yes, sir. So our original comment when this project first came before Planning Commission was to have the connection constructed and closed off, and that a percentage of Yeatman Lane would have to petition the city to actually open it back up. So it would be on the residents to petition the city to open this section of road up. But our original comment had that it be constructed and closed off.
And the value of having it constructed now is essentially the developers paying for the connectivity up to the point of actual connectivity.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Clarification, Mr. Keltner. You said a majority of the Yeatman Lane residents. Did you mean the majority of the
Ashwood Manor,
residents?
Yeatman Lane, however you'd like to put it up. I'm sorry, I
No, that's
should have
fine.
said
I want to be sure it wasn't
Ashwood
just
Manor.
those along
Yes,
Yeatman
ma'am.
Lane. Thank you.
Councilmember Hardison.
In this phase one, am I looking at this diagram correct where, say you do those 322 lots? Is it just 2 exits? Okay. Phase
one.
Mm-hmm.
Phase.
Mm-hmm.
The blue area. Output. Here. So there would be 2.
So just 2.
Now with conditions put forth the plant forest phase one construct part time phase, so that would get right off.
I know.
We'll rework the lot count.
And I know phase one is over 3 years.
Say 3.
3 to 4 years.
Yes.
When would that road be done? On the front end?
Yes.
2024?
The connection to the park will be done very.
Okay.
I believe Vice Mayor McBroom stated before a PO for the certificate of occupancy. 4 weeks off.
I had another question. With that existing property, that that historic property that's there, was there any conversation about having a buffer in the back of that? Because in the back of that home, there's no buffer.
In the back of the 5 acre lot?
Yes.
There, no, ma'am, that lot is part of the plant, so there has not been a conversation about adding a back up.
Has there been any issue or any talk about the flooding that goes on back out there?
We have received out the flood study that was done for the corner down by Wood Park Drive. All of the development down there has been moved. Now it's just open space.
I have one question for Mr. Keltner. I don't know if he can answer it, but it might be addressed to him, please.
Paul, if you could come up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Keltner.
Yes, ma'am.
And you can answer this. I'm not really quite sure, but I wanted to address the question that the gentleman had in the audience. Have there been any conversation from TDOT about Trotwood construction?
No, ma'am. We that is correct, and somebody did state that there was no project right now with the state to widen Trotwood, and that is correct. As far as I'm aware, there's no active project. We do have Trotwood in our list and our long-range plan with the MPO up there, but it is not an active project.
Thank you.
A long-range plan to widen Trotwood, or just overall Trotwood improvements?
Yes, sir. We have to. We're required to provide long-range transportation plans to our to the GNRC that oversees the funding that we acquire from the federal government and state as well. And so we have to put those actually in the queue as well as update with any funding and changes, and we move them from there to the RTP plan. So it is sitting there. It's ready if funding was to come available, and has to be there first before we could actually secure that funding for it. So if the state wanted to give us money to do it, it would have to be in that plan first.
First things first, though, would likely be widening of Bear Creek Pike.
That would be my preference, yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Keltner. We may come back to you. Anything else, Councilman Harsin? There was a question I had about the historic property. I know that there's going to be some preservation there. Have y'all put any thought to what will be done with that property?
Right now, it is a lot within the neighborhood. The home is within the planned development designated to be saved. It would be restored and be a residence for someone to live in.
It'll be sold at some point, and there'll be restrictions on what can go on with that.
And it's 5 acres?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions from any member of council? Councilman Coleman.
Just one on the house, the large estate house. What type of restrictions are going to be in place for that?
Just as far as no tearing it down, it's going to have to be brought up to the correct period of time that it is restored correctly in the same nature that it is. We want this to be the jewel, and that's kind of why one of the original plans had a roundabout, kind of swap that out for today. So this is going to be a big part of the neighborhood. It's going to be something that people want to drive by, so walking by. Pretty interesting house. If you haven't seen it.
Thank you. That was it.
Okay. Any other questions from any member of council? I'm going to say just a couple things real quick, and I guess we still have to have a motion. First of all, this project has been one that has been ongoing for quite some time. Some of you in this room have been here. I would imagine there's some in this room that have been here for every one of the meetings that we've had on this project, and that entails a couple different times in front of Planning Commission. It entails a sort of a false start in front of council, and because you decided to take it back to Planning Commission, I think at our request and directive. But the bottom line is, it's been a project that's been in the works for quite some time. One thing that I'm proud about this project is that it has evolved over a period of time from a development that started out at close to 1,000 residential units to one that is now down to 765, that's also preserving significant green space. It is true that if there wasn't such a preservation of green space, that the density count would be even lower. However, I happen to like the preservation of green space, and I think that future residents also would appreciate that. The other thing we talk a lot about in conversation with folks all over this area that are a part of this growth that we're experiencing is we throw around the word smart growth. And I think everybody has their own definition of smart growth and what that is. I don't know that I've come up with the perfect definition of smart growth, because I really don't think there is a perfect definition, because we all have our own definitions of what smart growth entails. But to me, I look at this project and I look at the fact that it reduced density of over 250 units. I look at this project and see that in a lot of ways it is paying for itself, at least in part, when we talk about growth, paying for growth, and that being a component of smart growth, because we have a sewer impact fee that has been instituted that this project will be one of the primary initial beneficiary or payors of, to the tune of over $1 million in sewer impact fees that would result from this project that would help pay for our expansion project. We know also that there's water connection fees that have been recently installed, also in the form of an impact fee that will help pay for the water expansion project over time. We know that at the City of Columbia, we've also increased the fees and cost of doing business through the application process at our Development Services Department, which is helping fund new positions in our Development Services Department, which is going to help us speed up and become more efficient in our processes for the community as a whole. In addition, there's been a traffic study that has been performed on this that has been discussed quite a bit. I believe that this particular traffic study recommendation will have some silver lining, even for those who are against this project, because there will be some overall traffic calming measures that I think will result as a result of the traffic signals. Because I know me personally, when I'm entering and leaving Ridley Park every Saturday morning to watch my youngest play soccer, getting in and out of Ridley is a difficult task in and of itself, especially when you consider the fact that the cars are speeding in both directions on Trotwood Avenue. And I believe that this traffic study is going to help make a more just a more calming sense on that roadway, which I think that the Ashwood Manor residents will also appreciate. The other thing about this project to keep in mind is we talk about 1,400 vehicles, but this is a project that is going to be phased over a 10-year period. So this is not an example of overnight 1,400 vehicles being on the road. This is an example of over a 10-year period if the entire project builds out. Because another thing that we've learned in approving these type of projects is that the market conditions really dictate a lot of how this will go. So, for example, it could be that phase 1 is built and that for some reason conditions warrant something different for phases 2, 3, and 4 that could potentially slow the project down. You don't know. What we do know is that it can't be more than what is being approved tonight. And if anything, it's likely to be only less than that. I know we have a few lawyers in the room tonight, and I've always been told that the sign of a good mediation is when both sides walk out, both are unhappy. Because if one side's walking out happy and the other side's walking out unhappy, then that means somebody got the raw deal. But if both sides are walking out a little bit unhappy, then that means it's probably a fair deal. And I know that some of the Ashwood Manor residents here tonight are probably going to walk out of here a little unhappy if this were to approve, which I don't know that it will. And I think that the developers will also walk out of here a little unhappy because they had a project that would have been a lot more profitable had their initial phase project been approved. So I think that that's another thing that I point to when you look at this project as a whole is nobody's really getting everything that they wanted here. With regard to the right-of-way, and I'll end on this. As I mentioned, I do believe that the Ashwood Manor residents have been very involved in this public process. I have appreciated personally the degree of professionalism and respect. I was getting emails as recently as this morning on this and responding back to some, and it's always been a very pleasurable experience with all of those residents. And to all of you who have been here for many meetings, I say thank you for that. And I understand that there is no desire from the current Ashwood Manor residents to have any form of connectivity to this project. And I would like to honor that request by the residents. It goes against sort of what we talk about in the city in terms of connectivity and wanting to be more connected as a community. It goes against a lot of what our sort of standards and ordinances would call for. But at the end of the day, Ashwood Manor is a county development. And if Ashwood Manor does not want to have that connectivity as you stand here today, then I don't think that it's right of us to force it down your throats. And so I do say, however, that I'm not so sure that the same opinion will be shared by Ashwood Manor residents 20 or 30 years from now. And so I'm inclined to move forward with having the right of way, at least in existence, but including some form of requirement that the Yeatman Lane property owners must be in agreement or come to the city for requesting for the connectivity prior to it happening, so that way you have assurance that it'll never just be because the city of Columbia decides that we want connectivity that it'll happen. And you'll always have the insurance policy of knowing that the Yeatman Lane residents will have it. And so my motion, I guess, would be for approval, subject to the traffic signalization at the Ridley Park entrance being included in phase 1A, and in addition would be to maintain the right of way, but to require that of any Yeatman Lane property owner, there must be 80% Yeatman Lane property owners must come to make the request for the connectivity to the City of Columbia at a planning commission, which I guess would then be ratified by the city council. Now that I've said that out loud, I'm looking over at the attorney to see if he's not looking to.
I would recommend that we put in there that the development of the right-of-way be up on the petition of X% of the property owners in Ashwood Manor.
Okay. So the development of the right-of-way be only upon the petition of no less than 80% of the Ashwood Manor property owners. So that would actually encompass even more than just Yeatman Lane. So I like that even better, Mr. City Attorney. Spoken like a good attorney over there. So that would be my motion for the two. I will tell you, again, as you know, if you're here this evening, this is first consideration, which means we have an opportunity for second consideration, which, by the way, to the developers, I expect an answer on the Mount Pleasant traffic signal by the time we get to second consideration. And if there's any Ashwood Manor property owner out there, I'm only going to listen to Ashwood Manor property owners on this issue. And so if there's anyone out there that would like to maybe come up with a better solution, or you think of a better idea on that issue, feel free to send me an email, and I'm happy to consider that for purposes of second consideration. But for tonight, my motion is to approve, subject to the signalization in phase 1 and the 80% approval by the Ashwood Manor residents.
What the road going through?
And the road in phase 1, yes. So that's my motion.
And that would be access to Ridley Park. That's the other portion that you were wanting. Is that acceptable, Mayor?
The signalization at the Ridley entrance and access to the Ridley Park. All right, that's my motion.
Second.
Motion's been properly seconded. Any further discussion, Vice Mayor?
Does this, when you say the right of way, you mean the right of way gets put in, paved and everything, or just grass is there? And a future right of way? What do you mean by right of way?
Well, that's a good question. And I think for purposes of tonight, I want it to be subject to the developer paying for the right of way to be built out, recognizing that there will be no connectivity unless there's 80% request. But I don't know that if, not necessarily espousing that, if you have a different thought process, you'd rather not be built out. I'm trying to get the developer to pay for it. I
would almost want to do the right of way separate. Can you do it separate?
You can. I think the way you would do it is you would either do the developer to pay for it, or you just maintain the easement. And the problem with having the developer pay for it is, quite frankly, by the time, if it is years down the road, by the time it was actually put into use, it may be in such a state of disrepair that the city would have to upgrade it to such an extent that they might as well be building it.
Well, and for that reason, and also the reason that I do have some worry that if it's fully built out, that people are going to start trying to use it and get through it anyway. So actually, let me say that
perhaps just an easement.
Yeah, just maintain an easement. Yeah, I like that better. Thank you, Vice Mayor. So actually, the right of way would just be maintained as an
Who
easement.
would be responsible for it when they want it, if they want it in 20 years down the road?
If it's an easement and it's not developed, then the city would have the easement. The easement would be dedicated to the city.
But who would pay to put the road in?
Oh, the city would have to.
I mean, I should say I don't want that.
Well, we can't make the developer pay for it. The developer may be long gone. The project may be completely developed.
That's why I didn't know if you want to do the right of way separate. Can it be a separate motion?
The only other thing would be to make the people requesting the access pay for it, but I don't think that they're going to want to do that if they're requesting the access, and they're going to have to develop it under our standards. So, I think the only logical thing would be for the city to pay for it.
I don't know if we want to combine them.
But how does taking them out? I mean, either way, I mean, we got to have a resolution on the issue, whether or not they're separated or not.
Well, my opinion was just do without the right of way. That's just get rid of it. They don't want it now. Their problem in the future. I think if you put the right of way in, I don't see the city. Why should the city put a right of way in? This might be $100,000 in 10 years from now, or $50,000 or $60,000. We're paying for something they didn't want this time. That's why I didn't know if you want to vote. You separate it out, and then we can make a motion on the right of way and vote for everything else that you put in. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Mr. City Attorney, which other agenda item could the right of way motion be included? Because 10.2 is first consideration of the ordinance to amend zoning ordinance to rezone a portion of tax map 112 parcel 9 at 6150 from CD2 to plan unit development residential and establish June 8th, 2023 as the date of public hearing. So that's just the rezone, or the first of a couple rezones.
I don't know if this particular track has the area where the right-of-way would be or not. We would have to check with Paul on that. But I think the motion has already been made and seconded with that in there. Now, you, of course, can amend that or remove that and change that motion, but the motion has been made and seconded, I believe. Didn't you second the motion?
So the motion to approve, which included the signal in phase 1 and the Ridley entrance and connectivity at phase 1, and then also the right of way to be included subject to a request to connect by 80% of Ashwood Manor residents, and for the right of way to be built out.
I think you said you wanted to change that to just an easement.
Yes.
And the second.
Yes.
I was under the impression it was just the easement.
Okay.
I seconded it.
All right. So just the easement. All right. So that's the motion. And it's been properly seconded.
Now you can change that if you choose to, but
And
that is what's on the
I may
floor.
do that at second consideration, depending on how that goes. Councilmember Wiles.
Yes, question, and again, I'm not a developer, but having said that, my vision of it was, we're talking about who would pay in the future, when and if. And I guess my probably misconception was that the developer would go ahead and street that out, sidewalk it, whatever looks in the existing that you're going to finish, up to the point where the property line is. And then when it came time for us, if and when Ashwood Manor wanted it, we would only be constructing that from Trotwood to that entrance into the development. Am I misconceiving what my thoughts were? It sounds like you're leaving it a straight, just easement to be, that would have to be done all the way into the development.
No, what you're looking at, the motion is basically from where the road ends down here to where the road is up here, that area right there. And that would just remain an easement for the city of Columbia, which would be grass, which hopefully would be maintained by the adjoining lot owners.
No, I do understand where it is. That's not my question. My question is, what does it look like from their development side up to that point? And I guess I'm looking at it. It's a finished road. I understand the Yeatman.
Well,
connection.
they may, if,
I'm trying to avoid us having to incur additional costs for a portion of it. I mean, I guess I'm not envisioning what it would look like.
Yeatman Lane, I believe, is already stubbed out.
It is. It's there.
And so if they were responsible for developing, they would have to develop to Yeatman Lane, and then it would have to be gated or something along that nature. And then you would have to deal with that situation with the gate there and.
Okay, that's what my
in those two
understanding
areas.
was. So you're telling me now that's not what we're considering.
That is one option, but the motion is for it to remain just an easement.
So there's no.
Where if you later wanted to build it out, you could build it out and connect it to Yeatman Lane.
I do understand that. I'm just saying, as far as their property and what they're accounting for, up to their point, they incur as much of the cost as they can. Then we block it off, gate it off, can't be. So
That's an option.
Yeah.
But that's not what the
No,
motion
that's
is.
not what the motion is.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, that's
Yes,
what I was
ma'am.
asking.
Yes, ma'am.
A few thoughts on why I believe it should be just an easement is, in my experience, when there's things built in no man's land, it can be an opportunity for like also already mentioned by the city attorney, it could become decrepit and tore up by the time that it gets to someone that they change their mind. But also, if the city, that's us, our responsibility is connectivity. This is what we would otherwise do. But we're doing basically this is the olive branch, if you will, for the residents of Ashwood Manor. So I think that if in the future they did want to have that road built out there over the easement, if that's something that benefits the city, then we can pay for it because that we would benefit the city. If it does not benefit the city, the future council or planning commission at the time could say, no, we don't want to pay for that. And then that would give the opportunity for the residents, if they really want it, they could raise the money in some way or another for an HOA or something like that. So I think leaving it an easement is better than having built out and then having some no man's land pavement.
Councilman Coleman, if I could follow, you took the words right out of my mouth, because we're actually sitting here talking about the City of Columbia property taxpayers spending future tax dollars to benefit non-City of Columbia, and I hate to put it like that, but they're not Columbia residents. And so I think it would be fair that if that subdivision wanted to connect in the future, that should be on their financial responsibility to do that.
Correct. And if
Unless-
the city at
unless
the time,
it is beneficial to the
correct,
city
yeah,
at
the
the
city
time.
decides and elects. So yeah, that's why I believe that's right. That's why I seconded the motion as I understood it. Which is just the easements being left. We're not building anything there.
Okay. Well, again, this is first consideration, so there is opportunity for that to become a little clearer as well. I was thinking out loud, and I'm going to say this because I've thought it twice now, but is there a way, because this project is such I mean, it's a 10-year phase project at a minimum, I guess. I mean, probably just like it's likely that it won't end up being 765 residential units, something less than that. It's likely that 10 years is probably not going to be, I mean, 10 years would be if everything went well, market conditions stayed as is. And so is there a way to tie the developer, if the Ashwood Manor residents came and made the request while the phased project was still ongoing, then in that case, the developer would have to pay for the connection. That way, if nothing else, you're preserving 10 years and maybe being able to get the developer to still pay for it, but you're also allowing it just to maintain as a right of way for now. Could you do that? I mean, if they were still, that could still be a condition of the project, it would seem to me, couldn't it? It's not often I stump the city.
I think you could have them to bond the construction of the easement for the life of the project. And then once the project was built out, the bond would expire and then the funds would no longer be there, but you would have those funds available for that construction during the life of the project. That may be an option.
If Ashwood Manor decided that
Yes,
they wanted it
yes.
while the construction was still ongoing.
Yes.
And so if nothing else, you're preserving a potential 10-year, okay.
Bond or letter of credit or something of that nature. Because we typically do letters of credit or bonds for various improvements. And that may be a way. I don't know if the developer would be amenable to something like that, but they would. They're saying they would, so that may be one avenue to, at least for the life of the project, to maintain that responsibility upon the developer if that request were made.
So they would not be released from that bond until the project ended and no request had been made.
Right.
Okay. So do I need to somehow include that in the motion as well, or can I do that in my 10.3 about the?
I would go ahead and get it in here, and since we're addressing that particular item right now,
Okay.
go ahead and get it.
So can I withdraw my motion and start over?
If you
Okay.
wish to, or you can.
Let me make sure-
Or you can amend it to add that requirement.
Let me make sure I understand. So what you're going to do, what you're suggesting, and it sounds pretty good to you. You think a little longer term. During the life of the project, if Ashwood Manor, we don't know what, 80% have to come in and say they want it?
They have to petition requesting that the
I mean, is there
connectivity.
Does all of them have to do it?
80%.
80%. All right.
80% of the
Residents.
lots
Lots.
per se.
Okay, so they have to come in, petition, they want it. The developer still has to put it in. Now, after the 10 years, we've got an easement there. In 20 years, if we feel like, yes, we want to pave it, we can pave it, the city?
So after 20 years, then if Ashwood Manor comes in 80% and requests it, and the city says it's going to benefit us, we're going to pay for it, then we can pay for it. If we say it's of no benefit to the city, Ashwood Manor, if you want it, you all need to raise the money and have it done according to the city standards. I think those are the two options that were discussed.
All right, let me sit here and think. I mean,
But during the life of the project, there would be a bond or letter of credit from the developer to cover that expense if the residents came forward during that time.
all right, how do we make sure that happens? What you just said, 20 years, I'm hoping I'm here. Now, this is that stuff that gets real wordy at the end, and why they did that 20 years ago, nobody's around that's going to remember it.
Well, they're going to have to look at
I mean, is that something you can look at before our next meeting?
they're going to have to look at what took place in the motion
I
and,
just want to
and
make sure
look it up.
what I'm scared is we don't make the motion exactly right. I've heard that too many times on planning commission.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't do the motion exactly right.
They'll have to look at the motion and see the substance of the motion to find out if it's 20 years from now. If it's 10 years from now, or within that 10-year period, we will have the instrument, the letter of, because I sign off on letters of credit that come from particularly wastewater and engineering department
Right.
just about every day, where people are bonding their agreement to perform various services for the city that the
And-
developers have to do.
It's very common on city council agendas, you're approving taking over public infrastructure that
Yes.
may have been stuff that was letter of credit 10
Right.
plus years ago.
And they may, you know, they are bonding that they're going to do the work, and then they may have a bond for a maintenance period for a year thereafter, and then that expires and we have the full bill.
So when this motion is made, we will be able to see the motion and we can still correct it on our next meeting if it passes.
Mhm.
And then we can adjust what we need to.
Yeah, because
I mean, I need some time to think about this. That's
And as I mentioned, I mean, if anyone from the Ashwood Manor has any input on, you know, a better way, I mean, y'all just sat through 20 minutes of that back and forth, and you know, so if something's come to you, I mean, as you can see, this is not an exact science here. I mean, we want to get the best product that we can while making sure the developer is paying for it to the extent we can control that. So I guess I will amend my motion. It will include the phase one signalization, Ridley entrance, Ridley connectivity, which was in the original motion. It will include the right-of-way easement to be maintained, not developed, and only connected to Yeatman Lane if and only if a minimum of 80% of the residents make the request for connectivity. And during the life of the entire phase project, which we know is
Mayor, let's say 80% of the lots, because residents may be a nebulous term because of the number of people that live in a house. 80% of the lots is a finite number. So
Yes.
if you don't mind, let's say 80% of the lots. Is that
80% of the residential lots
Yes.
come with the request for the connectivity. And for the entire life of this project, which is a minimum of a 10-year project, the developer, whether or not it's this developer or any future developer, shall maintain on file with the city a bond or a letter of credit sufficient to make the connection and improvements to the road for the connection if the request is made by the residents in that 80%.
Sounds good.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? I'll remind everyone that we'll be back on second consideration as well if we get to that point. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we will take the vote. Can we get that on the? So it passes 5-1. Okay, so item 10.2 is approved on 5-1. Is it in the back room? Can you wake him up?
There it goes.
All right. So that item is approved 5-1, 10.2 on first consideration. And now we have item 10.3, first consideration of ordinance number 4457, an ordinance to amend ordinance 4400, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Columbia, the zone property being annexed by resolution 2329 located at 6150 Trotwood Avenue, being a portion of tax map 112 parcel 9 to PUD residential and established June 8th, 2023 as the date of public hearing. I'll make a motion subject to the requirements as outlined in my motion for item 10.2. Does that suffice, Mr. Tischer?
Yes.
All right. It's been properly seconded. Any further discussion on item 10.3? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. That item is approved. Next item, 10.4, first consideration ordinance 4458 to amend the ordinance 4400, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Columbia to zone properties being annexed by resolution 2329, located at tax map 112 parcels 2.03 and 10.01 off Trotwood Avenue and Old Zion Road to PUD residential and established June 8th, 2023 as the date of public hearing. I will make my motion subject to the motion requirements outlined in item 10.3.
10.2.
10.2. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none, we'll take the vote on item 10.4. That item is approved. Next item, 10.5, first consideration of ordinance 4460 to amend ordinance 4400, the zoning ordinance of the city of Columbia to zone property being annexed by resolution 2329, being a portion of tax map 112 parcel 10.07 to PUD residential and established June 8th, 2023 as the date of public hearing. I'll make my motion subject to the motion requirements in item 10.2.
Second.
It's moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on item 10.5? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. That item is approved. Next item, 10.6, first consideration of ordinance 4461, an ordinance to amend ordinance 4400, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Columbia by approving Old Zion Road, PUD preliminary master plan located off Trotwood Avenue at tax map 112 parcels 2.03, 9, 10.01, and 10.07 and established June 8th, 2023 as the date of public hearing. I'll make the motion to approve subject to the requirements outlined in item 10.2.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Keltner, do they need to resubmit their the PUD master plan, since we want to go all the way through? I shouldn't say resubmit, modify. I mean, we're good on this master plan and PUD, with us wanting to require the light and the street connectivity.
I believe it was stated that it would be put in the first phase, that the Champions Way, which is that spline road that goes from Trotwood to Ridley Park, was part of your motion there to go in at the very beginning.
But they don't need to have it on the master plan, so you're comfortable with this?
Yes, sir. What they'll end up doing is they'll resubmit to us a clean version of all the motions that were made here, and it will adjust all those. We'll certify that, and that'll be what their approval will be looked at.
And that's what we'll see next vote.
Yeah, if they would like to submit it by that time, yes, they could. Be a part of that. I would like to point, Mr. Tischer, though, that we have been conditioning the zoning and the annexations on there with that, and I'm not sure how to clean that up, but typically we wouldn't condition zones or annexations. It would be on the plan itself.
It's on the PUD. It's not on the zoning, of course.
Okay,
Let's make sure we have everything cleaned up by our next vote. That way it's nice and clean and we're voting on it.
It probably won't be on their actual plan because they won't redo their plan until everything is finalized, correct?
If they can redo the phase line on it, right now the road goes through 1A and 1B. So they would adjust for just the 1A to go all the way through, and then acknowledgement of the signal.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we're back on 10.6. Any further discussion on that item? Hearing none, we'll take the vote on item 10.6. That item is approved. All right, now 10.7, first consideration of ordinance 4462. An ordinance, by the way, before I go further, if you are here on that matter and you would like to leave, it is okay. We would welcome you to stay, but it will not be awkward if you do like to leave. And we say thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Do I need that now?
10.7. When I let it get moved in a second. All right, we're on item 10.7. First consideration of ordinance 4462, an ordinance amending ordinance 4400, the zoning ordinance of the city of Columbia regarding mobile vending and establishing June 8th, 2023 as the date of public hearing.
Move to approve.
Been moved by Councilmember Marshall, properly seconded by Councilmember Coleman. Any discussion on that item? Vice Mayor?
Council, I'll abstain on this 10.7.
All right, let the record reflect the Vice Mayor is abstaining on item 10.7. I know we have another consideration on this as well, but I just want to again say thank you to Development Services for their good work and bringing this to us. And this also had several motions and other sort of amendments as it navigated its way through. But good work, Mr. Keltner and Mr. McCarthy. Thank you very much. We'll take the vote. That item is approved. Next item, 10.8, first consideration ordinance 4463, fixing the tax rate for the city of Columbia year 2023 on all taxable property at the rate of .08251 per 100 and establish the date of June 8th, 2023 as the date of public hearing.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. That item is approved. Next item, 10.8, 10.9. 10.9, I'm sorry. 10.9, first consideration of ordinance 4464, the appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024, and establish June 8th, 2023 as the date of public hearing.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded. And I have to just point out on this a huge thanks to our finance team and Mr. Massey, Mr. Jablonski particularly on bringing this to us. It's funny, of all the things we talk about, this is really one of the most important things that we do as a city is to pass this budget in a very good appropriation ordinance that it is. And we're very grateful to the city staff for bringing this to us. Any further discussion? Hearing none, take the vote. That item is approved on first consideration. Next item, 10.10, first consideration of 4465 to approve the classification and compensation plan for the employees of the City of Columbia for the 23-24 fiscal year.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded. Item 10.10. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. That item is approved. Next item, 1011. First consideration ordinance 4466 to amend the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget ordinance, providing for revisions to the general sanitation and wastewater funds.
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. That item is approved. Final item, 10.12, first consideration of ordinance 4467, an ordinance to amend Title 17, Chapter 1, Section 17108 of the Columbia Municipal Code, the same being the schedule of fees for the collection of garbage and refuse within the city of Columbia, and establish the date of June 8th, 2023 as the date of public hearing.
Move to approve.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on the final item of the evening? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. That item is approved. That takes care of section 10. We'll now move to section 11, other business. Anyone on council wish to be heard for any other matter?
Did everybody get their CPWS?
Yes.
Yes, they have been stripped, Council.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Marshall, for providing the memorandum from CPWS, providing an update, and thank you for your service on that CPWS board on behalf of this council. Anyone else wish to be heard? I know it's been a long meeting tonight. Thank you for your patience and for Donna and Josh who are here and who sat through the entire meeting, by the way. I'll point out. Well, I know everybody else did, but Donna and Josh aren't normally at this meeting, and y'all actually picked a long meeting, but we're grateful you're here tonight, and thank you again for all that you do. With no reason to be in executive session tonight, Mr. City Attorney, so we will entertain a motion to adjourn, and we'll have it on a voice vote.
So move. Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. We'll take the vote, please.
Mr. Coleman?
Aye.
Mr. Green? Ms. Hardison? Mr. Marshall? Mrs. Wiles? Vice Mayor McBroom? Mayor Mulder?
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good job.